Apocalypse Child is directed by Mario Cornejo, written by him and Monster Jimenez, and stars Sid Lucero, Anika Dolonius, Ana Abad-Santos, RK Bagaching, and Gwen Zamora. And it's actually a little difficult for me to explain what exactly this movie is about, but the most I will say is that Apocalypse Child is about a group of people whose paths cross in Baler. And from then on, it becomes a story about myths and unresolved pasts and broken relationships. Now, Apocalypse Child was actually released last year originally at last year's Q Cinema Film Festival, and I missed it then. I didn't get to watch any of the films from the festival last year because I was trying to finish my thesis, and I just didn't have time to catch a lot of these indie movies. Thankfully, it has gotten a wider release now, a year later, and the good side to that is that I was able to finally watch it. The bad side is that I am not going to be able to put this on my top 15 movies of the year, because technically it did come out last year, but it definitely would be up there. This is maybe the best Filipino film I've seen since Sana Date in 2013. This is just such an utterly beautiful film with perfect acting from the entire cast, and it's directed in such an ethereal way that you rarely ever see in any sort of movie at all. Now, the first thing you'll notice about Apocalypse Child is just how stunning this movie looks, and it really is truly great cinematography. And what makes it so great is the fact that it does not rely on its location for beautiful shots, because there are a lot of good-looking Filipino movies out there today that really bank on the natural beauty of their locations where they're shot. But here, what makes Apocalypse Child look so good is just how it's shot. You know, the images that the cinematographer puts together. And Baler really is a really nice looking place, but you know, even if it was set somewhere else, this director of photography and Mario Cornejo, they are the ones who really bring out the beauty in these locales. I really don't think I've ever seen any other Filipino film capture water this well. The colors are just so nice, the framing is so great, but what really sets apart the cinematography here is its use of focus, its expressive use of focus. What I mean by this is that when you watch the scenes in Apocalypse Child, the focus is always shifting from one character to another or to another thing in the scene, and it really helps guide the audience's eye so that we know what to focus on, but at the same time it gives the film this whole dreamlike quality which totally fits with the movie's ideas about myths and the volatile nature of these characters and their lifestyle. Now, when it comes to sound is probably the technical area where Filipino cinema has the hardest time, because we just don't seem to have the same kind of technology as other countries do. But the sound mix in Apocalypse Child is just flawless, because I did not notice the sound at any point. You know, there's so many local movies here that have imperfect sound, so that when you hear something that's kind of off, it immediately takes you out of the movie. You notice all the ADR, you notice all the dubbing, and here you don't notice that at all, and it keeps you locked in. And this sound is elevated, of course, by a really sad and soulful score from, of course, Army Malyari of Up Dharma Down. And we have to talk about the editing in Apocalypse Child, because the editing in this movie is some of the best I've ever seen in a local movie ever. And to really articulate just how good the editing is here and what makes it special, I have to compare it to another film, and I really kind of hate doing that because I don't like comparing films, especially if it sounds like I'm putting another film down, but I really just have to make this comparison. Last year, I believe, there was a movie called Waves that came out, which is also a Filipino production, and the way their editing style in that film is kind of similar to the editing style in Apocalypse Child, because they do it kind of like a stream of consciousness thing. But in Waves, I thought it went kind of overboard, no pun intended, to the point that that movie became kind of confusing for me. But here, the unconventional editing in Apocalypse Child really works, because the cutting never gets in the way of the storytelling. It only helps enhance the story that's being told. Every single shot you see in this movie has something to do with the character's state of mind, or something that's being said by one of the characters. And again, it reflects the lifestyle of the characters, the way it's all scattered and whatnot. But at the same time, it also kind of gives the impression that everyone in this movie is drawing from the same collective memory. What I mean by this is that, you know, a lot of these characters have known each other for a very long time, so that when one person is telling a story, and everyone else is there listening to that character, suddenly the movie cuts to these different shots that kind of illustrate that story being told, and you get the impression that every single character in that room is thinking of these shots. It's just a really interesting technique that I don't think I've ever really seen done before. Now, with regard to how this movie is written, I think Anica Delonious' character says it best when her character says something like, "Normal people don't talk like this," and that's exactly what I thought about the movie. But this is not a bad thing at all, because this movie is written almost like a mystery, because everyone in this movie is just so non-confrontational, and there are things that they just do not want to talk to each other about. But it makes perfect sense given the context, because again, because these characters have known each other for so long, of course they're not going to tell each other things that they already know. So this kind of writing does pretty much give a lot of respect to the audience, because it leaves it up to us to piece together what they're saying. And when we do get to piece together what's happening with these characters, it changes how we view them, because, you know, suddenly when we get the full picture, a lot of them begin to look a lot more unlikable and hard to love than they might have been at the beginning of the film. The best thing I can say about this movie and these characters is that they're completely realistic. You know, even if you don't necessarily like every single one of them, there are qualities about them that you will be able to relate to, or that I swear you have seen in, like, maybe your friends or something. It just feels so authentic. And what a cast this movie has. This entire cast is just so great. All of these actors really turn in like the best performances of their respective careers. Sid Lucero, who is maybe my favorite Filipino actor working today, has this real laid-back quality about him and his personality, but he's clearly trying to not confront certain things about himself, and yet it totally comes off as natural. Anica Delonious is our audience character here. We really kind of see things through her eyes, because she's the person who knows the least about everyone else. And her character's confusion and her frustration is exactly how we feel, kind of projected onto her. Abad-Santos is great as well. She plays Sid Lucero's character's mom. And there's just something up with her from the moment you see her, but she still plays her character in such a way that she comes across like that cool tita that everyone has. RK Bagaching's character is the one who's deepest inside his own shell, so he's really pretty stoic throughout most of the movie, but when he does expose that vulnerability of his, sometimes it really pays off. And then you got Gwen Zamora, who in my opinion is a character of contradictions, but she manages to make all these contradictions make sense given, you know, who she really is. And again, she comes off like a normal human being, like a real human being. But really, the star of this movie is Mario Cornejo, like the director. He infuses this film with something so ethereal that I really can't articulate, but I will try to do so anyway. You know, watching this movie makes you feel really cold and really sad, but at the same time it makes you feel really warm and at home. And yet for so much of the atmosphere that's in this movie, it never feels like he's getting in the way of the actors, because the scenes do play out extremely naturalistically, it almost feels voyeuristic at times. And then you've got the surfing scenes, which are really less about the surfing itself and more about how these characters are connecting with each other. And these moments are just of pure visual beauty and grace that really could not have been done in any other way. My only flaw with Apocalypse Child is the fact that, for me, there are moments when the ambiguity gets a little bit too excessive, and I'm not sure if I really wanted to know all the answers that they were hinting at throughout the movie, because the ending does give us answers. I don't really know how I really feel about that ending, but overall, Apocalypse Child really is just an awesome movie. It is the best Filipino film I have seen in years, and I know that it's still showing this long weekend, so please go out and support it before it goes away. It really deserves your money. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Apocalypse Child. If you guys have seen it, please tell me what you thought about it, and whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.